I'm WTOP's Mike Murillo here with WTOP reporter Sandra Jones, whose series Parenting Your Parents is being unveiled right now on WTOP and on WTOP.com. Please give it a listen. It's an important series because it goes into Sandra's story about helping her mom through a stage of life where a lot of us have been through, where you find yourself parenting your parents. Maybe it's a severe health issue or something more. Sandra's series goes into the whole process, gives you a lot of a great insight into how to care for your parents. And Sandra, what is behind you looking into the series?
So my journey started, I guess, a little bit over 2 years ago, when my mom became ill. And actually, it was both my parents, but my mom more so than my dad. And so at that time, it was a little scary. Um, I didn't know where to go, where to turn, who to talk to. I was fortunate. I have two younger siblings, and one happens to be a medical professional. So we were able to all handle it together. But because of the fact that I'm here in Virginia and my parents live about an hour away from my husband and I was able to, pretty much take on the burden of, handling it because I was right here in town and my siblings were out of town. But at that time, her health started to decline, and we had to do something. And so we kind of just all got together, and we reached out to different people, to different resources, because honestly, we didn't know what to do. And it was a very trying time, very challenging, very difficult. I think back now and I'm like, how do we ever do this? But, sometimes when you're put in a position where you have to, get something done, and you have a loved one that's going through a situation that you never imagined that you'd be the one kind of taking over or handling it. I mean, you just do it, right? And we just kind of went into, that mode of, taking care of our parents. So there's conversations that were had. There were meetings. Um, there were different people, that we had to, talk to. And so, we came up with a plan. We had a checklist, and we went through all of that. And so basically, this series is kind of giving folks a checklist on how they can handle every step by step process, because it is a process. It's not like, when you're caring for your child, child care is a little bit different. You have a go-to guide for that. But when you're talking about caring for your parents, that's something that you don't have. And then with that in mind, as I was kind of going through it, I had colleagues, friends, that were dealing with something similar. And I thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to go to management at WTOP and ask them, what do they think about doing a series, Parenting Your Parents, or something to help us to be able to, for it to be a smooth process, so that we can educate folks who are going through this? Because I will tell you, a lot of my friends that I talked to about this were in denial. Some are still in denial. And I'm telling them that it's a real thing. And so I think that helped push it along. And honestly, it really is therapy for me. This whole series, putting this thing together, has been therapy for me to get through the situation. Unfortunately, my mom passed early January. And so after that point, we started working on this in December. And then my mom passed in January. And then I really needed that outlet to kind of get me through, the tough time.
So, talk a bit about, and I know from my own personal experience, not
Mhm.
only are you dealing with a parent who's ailing, but you're also dealing with so much other stuff out there that you don't even think of when it comes to paperwork, when it comes to their estate, when it comes to their well-being, how to take care of them. So, let's get into some of those things that you actually looked into. And let's start with the estate part of things when it comes to things like power of attorney. What did you learn there? And what advice could you give people now to maybe even have those conversations before their parents become ill?
What I did was I reached out to a caregiver expert with AARP, and we kind of went through that checklist. So it started with, their finances, paying attention to how they're paying their bills, if they're paying their bills, having the tough conversation. I think that was the biggest part, is like, because your parents don't want to give up that control, right? So you have to be very temperamental in how you talk to them about it. And then once they agree to it, because that was a tough part for us, is for them to agree to allow us to handle their finances. Then you're talking about looking at, okay, what do they have? Um, Savings account, retirement account. And then we talked after that with putting together. Now, the good thing with my parents, they did have a will in place that they actually had in place for over a decade. So what we did was we went to an attorney. I want to say that I think it was an estate attorney we went to, and we poured the wills. It's called a pour over. So we put the will into a trust. And so that made things so much easier because it basically has the same thing, but the trust protects assets and property and all of that stuff. So that was the first thing was dealing with, the finances part. Then the second part was, okay, so now we have to talk to, my mom, okay, or my parents in general. All right, what do you want to do? Do you want to stay at home or do you want to go to an assisted living facility? Well, my mom made it very clear that she did not want to go outside of the home. And so we started preparing things around the house, making modifications around the house. Some of the things that were included in that were adding extra lighting to the house, adding some handlebars or bars in the bathroom, in the shower, in the toilet area to make sure that my mom could get in and out. Those were a few things. More lighting outside. She wasn't in a wheelchair, but she did have problems walking. So she had a walker, with her. So we did some modifications around the home because we knew that she wanted to stay there. So, while it was just myself here in Virginia that was caring for her, and my sisters would come, from out of town to help with the caregiving responsibilities as well, then we're talking about having to bring in someone. So I would, visit my parents at least once a week, maybe twice a week to take them to their doctor's appointments. My mom more so because she had more than my dad at the time. So taking, her to all of her doctor's appointments, my dad too, when he needed to go. And then it was also a matter of whatever I could do in the house, like the cleaning, some cooking, some laundry. It just depended on what was needed. We also had someone else to come in, and that was like once or twice a week, maybe 3 to 4 hours a day, because we knew that she wanted to stay in the home. So that means bringing in home care, a healthcare aide to help with that, because I had to work. My sisters have to work. My dad was helping, where he could, but he also was dealing with his own health challenges. So those are some things that we found out that you have to, think about. With getting back to the finances and the trust, you want to make that process as easy as possible because it can get very stressful. Especially when there's nothing in writing and there's no will or anything like that. That's extremely important. And you have to, again, sit down and have conversations. I mean, we had conversations, we had family meetings, and every step of the way, we explained everything to my parents so they knew exactly what we were doing, how we were doing it. They were never in the dark. And we were very sensitive in how we spoke with them because we showed them that we cared for them and that we loved them very much. And we're only doing this out of love, though we knew how tough it was. And I will tell you, there were days where I would go to my parents and then I would leave and I had to like sit in the parking lot and just kind of I was emotional. I got really emotional about it because I'm like, my mom is really going downhill. This is a real thing. And I was somewhat in denial as well. And I thought, well, she's going to get better. She's going to get better. But she didn't get better. Um, so, as you can see, I'm emotional now about it because
Of course.
I was really in the trenches with this thing. When my sisters weren't there, it was really just me, and my dad somewhat. And I remember, talking to family members, like my mom's siblings about it. And they said, well, do what you can. And that's what I did, but you also have to take care of yourself too in this process. I think that's what we forget is that we forget that you have to take care of yourself. And I'm thankful I have a husband, who's very supportive because your spouse, you need that support too. He was on board. He was there with me with whatever I needed. So that's an important thing too, to remember.
And I think that's one of the most important parts. Remember to take care of yourself in this whole process. And you can speak for this, I can speak for this, where you
Mhm.
forget to eat, you forget to do certain normal things that you do in a daily life, the things that sustain you
Mhm.
because you're going through so much in this process, with the love that you have for your parents, of course, you're going to do this. And sometimes you forget to take care of yourself.
I would leave my parents' house, because I would help with cooking and stuff, but I wouldn't, I never got a chance to really stay. A couple times I would stay to have dinner with them or something like that, but then it just got to be a little much. And so I would leave, I would, grab something to eat, or I would just sit in the parking lot and just kind of decompress from everything because it was so draining when I was there. And, because I remember my mom was like vibrant and upbeat and she took care of everybody. And just to see her not able to take care of herself or her family, it was hard to watch. It was really hard to watch. And I think that's where the denial comes in. I think for a lot of people, at least for me, that you're watching that and you're like, no, this is not really happening. Until I started seeing some physical changes in her, like the way she was walking, the way she was eating. It just seemed like it happened so fast. Even though it was a slow decline, it just seems like it just was happening so fast. But I have no regrets. I was here the entire time, with my parents. I got to spend so much time with my mom, and that's a blessing because sometimes you don't get that. But I was there with her. I remember pushing her, and, you know, I'm just so thankful that I had those days with her.